Bob Harris, who is your best baller this year?
I think he's wide receiver 37 on DK right now. Mike Evans, perennially disrespected, perennially awesome. 1,255 yards last year, 10th straight 1,000-yard season. Had some health issues, missed some games. Still finished. He was a monster. Came back from the injury, averaged 96.7 yards per game. Looking at him, I think you have wide receiver 1 any given week outcomes. Also, I like that I can maybe get Devontae Adams the round before, add him if I have a quick turnaround to get Mike Evans in. I think that a duo like that can make a difference, especially at best ball.
What is going on, Sharp Football family? It is your resident Swami of Konami, Rich Hribar, and we are here recording this 2 weeks out from the Hall of Fame game. We're going to have football. It is football season. We're getting just a plethora of football news ever since the 4th of July holiday. It is NFL season. And what better to get you ready for the NFL season than having another great guest lined up? He is a Hall of Famer. We're tapping into the Hall of Famers already in mid-July. It is Bob Harris from Footballguys.com. He's the co-host of the Football Diehard Show on SiriusXM. That is Monday through Fridays, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Bob, it is so good to see you again this summer.
Likewise, Rich. It's been a while, so I'm glad to get hooked up and couldn't become at a more eventful moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob leads in here, talking about, us literally minutes before the show of us recording this, that, Adam Schefter drops that, Rashee Rice, reached some sort of plea arrangement instead of skipping. He basically forewent trial. I'm not a legal expert, so I won't try to get into the minutia of the details, but the bottom line is that we do know what his sentencing is going to be. Now we await what his sentencing from the NFL is going to be. There was a Chiefs beat reporter, Matt Derrick. If you follow him at Twitter, he is at Matt Derrick. He has said his sources and organization believe that Rashee Rice may get a suspension of 2 to 4 games. We'll see what the actual total ends up being, but it probably will not be 0. So kind of, we'll start it off here and kind of get some initial takes here, Bob, because I believe that, gamers were finally starting to come around to saying hey, it's going to be another year. This thing's going to get kicked down the road and go into 2026, where Rashee Rice isn't going to have to deal with the legal ramifications or the fallout. And now that's going to happen. So even if we're expecting just even a minimal suspension, that's going to have, ripple effects in fantasy football. So I just want to get in general to start there, just your initial thoughts on this news dropping literally seconds before we came on.
I have been a little fearful of this news. We've heard nothing. We knew nothing of the progress of the court deal. They kept that silent and apparently working on the plea deal. I thought the price had risen precipitously for me, being a cautious person. Xavier Worthy available at a much more affordable price, maybe with similar upside or at least a robust enough role that I'm comfortable going with them. So I had way more shares of that. This does seem like, maybe we should have been ready for it, but it does, I'm looking at, I saw him go in the second round, Rashee Rice in a draft last night. So I think people had just come to the belief that, hey, this is all done and over with. It's getting pushed out till next year. By the way, Jordan Addison investors, you're on the clock too. But his trial date pushed back a couple of days this week, so we'll find out more about him. But I do think the 2 to 4 game sounds realistic at this point. And if that's the case, everyone who's been investing, I think above a wide receiver 3 price may be unhappy with the outcome, but still the week-to-week scoring, I think we have Football Guys projected about 24 points per game. That still exists. So be ready for that when he comes back. And I think there are a handful of receivers that maybe are going to get off to a slow start and are way better values right now. Stephon Diggs comes immediately to mind, and reporting today that maybe he'll be ready as soon as week 1, but he's been going as wide receiver 45. He's still got that similar upside in New England this year. And if he plays the whole season, maybe he ends up being a way better value too.
Yeah, I think we should look at this kind of optimistically within context of, a player that is getting his, at least, just due through something that, a transgression that he should be punished for. But when you look at it in context from a fantasy football, like we're getting this news on July 17th. We're not getting it on August 17th or, the 2 days before the season started or before the Monday Night Football game of week 1, like Christian McCaffrey last year, right? Like we have plenty of time to calibrate. Mostly gamers have just been drafting in best balls. Obviously, there are some Scott Fishbowl drafters that will probably be a little bit disappointed where they drafted Rashee Rice. But like you brought up, let's just assume it is the 2 to 4 games. That's going to happen at the beginning of the season, right? That's when your fantasy football team is the strongest. There's no bye weeks that have occurred there. And you look at the Chiefs schedule too, the opening 4 games, they were at the Chargers. They played the Eagles, at the Giants, and then against the Ravens. Like they had a pretty hard schedule too, where you might've been even disappointed with the run out of those games if he misses those 4 games. But the fact that it still is a per game, it's a weekly game, fantasy football, and while your team's at the strongest point of the season, Rashee Rice, where does he fall is like the next question, like the trickle down. If he had risen to like up to like where Tyreek Hill was going, now where does he fall if we're pricing in? Let's just assume it's a month, the opening month of the season. Where do you think is like a reasonable price point for him to be going?
I kind of put him down. I moved him in my immediate rankings right before we jumped on the show, right outside the wide receiver 3 range. I think that might have been overly aggressive, but waiting to see what happens is kind of where I'm at. But if he comes back, I mean, again, I think we're 20 close to 20 points a game. If he's going to get that, it probably should be drafted in the wide receiver 3 territory, and you find somebody you draft a little after him that can fill the void until you get there.
Yeah. I still have a hard time looking at kind of the wide receiver landscape, just assuming it's 4 games. If we end up, if it's 6 or longer, then that's going to change things. But, even so, like I think around guys like DJ Moore and stuff like that, right? Like almost like a similar archetype of receiver, maybe has some question marks. We know the talent's there, but then there's a lot of things in motion anyways, because there was going to be a lot of fluidity in Rashee Rice anyways. He was coming back from an injury, not only the suspension. They weren't just going to rebottle what Xavier Worthy did in the postseason last year either. So that was always going to be factored in to the equation as well with Rashee Rice. I think what you have to factor into is the added layer of variance now of just he's going to get on board now a moving train, right? So if the Chiefs are now if they're flourishing that opening month, and say Hollywood Brown's playing well and Xavier Worthy are playing well, that just makes it harder and adds another layer of variance. It's not like Rashee Rice just comes in and immediately just reoccupies this 40% target share, which is what he had the first 4 weeks of the season when he was on the field, 40% of the team targets. He was never going to replicate that either. So that's kind of where I look at it, as kind of like around like, the DJ Moore-ish range, so I'm like right on the fence there. And then the other side of that is, like you said, Xavier Worthy now. Obviously, people that bought in on Xavier Worthy, you get a little bump, a pre-draft closing line value. But how far should Xavier Worthy actually climb? This is another player that obviously has the other side of that coin, was going to have a lot of fluidity. He had a big target spike last year towards the back end of the season, but also never had 80 yards in a game during the regular season in a year where Rashee Rice didn't play. Travis Kelce was 35 years old. So how aggressive do we get with Xavier Worthy with this news? How much is too far?
Yeah, I was looking at the consensus. So football guys, Rice wide receiver 17, Worthy wide receiver 27. I think, people's immediate reaction might be to swap them. I think that's a little too aggressive, but Worthy down the stretch last year was pretty impressive. The Super Bowl performance kind of, cemented at least a lead, a co-lead role with Rice. So I think that's pretty good. I just grabbed a share of Hollywood Brown, in a pick that I had happen to come up on Underdog, and so I'm fine with that. At cost, I think he should move. I'm not going to overreact. I think 27, moving him up a little higher in the wide receiver 2 range, makes sense to me. I wouldn't push him into wide receiver 1 territory or overreact. That's the thing we do this time of year, right, Rich? We're all looking through the drinking straw. We see the moment by moment, developments, and we want to race to acknowledge them. We shouldn't over stress them. We should play it a little bit cool.
Football season is right around the corner, and there's no better way to lock in your fantasy dominance early than with Best Ball on DraftKings, where you draft once and ride your roster all season long. And right now, DraftKings is giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million Best Ball contest for just $20, and you'll score another Best Ball ticket to play free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to win big. It's easy. Just draft your dream team once, no weekly management required, and let your top scorers automatically start each week. Across the whole season, every breakout star, every clutch play, every touchdown will count towards your quest for a share of $15 million. And if you're looking for someone to plug into your best ball lineup, there's nothing better to buy than year 2 wide receivers. Looking at wideouts that have been selected outside of the top 24 based on years in the league, second-year wideouts have delivered the highest hit rates for beating their ADP and delivering wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 scoring seasons. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for a share of $15 million and get a second ticket to play free for a share of $15 million. That's 2 chances to win big without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Yeah, I still think when I look at kind of like where I slot these guys in tiers, which is based on kind of like their role and outcome, you're still looking at Xavier Worthy kind of in that same bucket of like a Jalen Waddle or a Devontae Smith, right? Like a guy who's that's where I still think you want to handle him kind of around that area. So I don't know like how far he's probably not going to make a significant jump up in terms of my ranks more than Rice will kind of get dinged just because we're just adding another variable to Rashee Rice, who's an expensive player, right? Like when you have an expensive player, you want a little bit more of that security. You want to feel warm and fuzzy about that player, right? Like there's a reason you're spending that kind of capital on that player, and you just don't really have that. And we maybe never even had that, even though we got a little false sense of security.
I think my initial moves, I didn't move Worthy at all yet. I'm still considering it. My immediate move was to get Rice just based on the uncertainty and not knowing how long the suspension is going to be. I don't want him up there in that wide receiver 2 territory, and I'd probably feel more comfortable with him just outside wide receiver 3 until I get a little certainty.
Yeah, and we still are waiting on the actual certainty for a certain amount of games. It was just kind of newsworthy to kind of lead off because there will be gamers kind of, best ball drafts are going on and all of those things. But I would say like this still was kind of more of a positive outcome due to the timing. I think the timing is pretty solid for us to calibrate and adjust. Apologies to, like I said, those gamers that this week, did draft him in maybe the second round. But let's move on to some other news here in training camp. We do have kind of the news of the wide receiver holdouts. They want the bag always, right? The receivers always want the bag. The price of the brick never goes down, Bob. You've seen that, that's the Jets' shrewd move of, extending Garrett Wilson early, but we've got Terry McLaurin wants a new contract coming off of, his spike season, finally playing with a real quarterback. We have Jauan Jennings, who also wants, extra money in San Francisco. So these are 2 players that I think are we're in nebulous zones. Like Terry McLaurin's been kind of in like that spot where gamers are like, well, I guess I'll take him here, but like he never feels like a great click, where he's at. He's in kind of like that wide receiver 2 range. And then Jauan Jennings is kind of in that wide receiver 3 range of where he showed us the upside last year, but then we've got a lot of moving parts in San Francisco with, we don't know when Brandon Ayuk's coming back, Ricky Pearsall in year 2. He finished he finished the end of the year strong like Xavier Worthy did. Not quite as lengthy of a sample size, but did close the year strong. So how are we handling, kind of the adjustment with these players and holdouts? Do you factor in any of this at all? Or do you just say like, hey, this isn't going to get into the season?
I think you judge each one carefully, but we can look at history and deals tend to get done. I think of McLaurin's case, the day they paid Deebo Samuel more than him, they knew they were going to have to pay, at least for this year. They knew they were going to have to pay McLaurin. You've got Jaden Daniels on his rookie contract. This is your opportunity to pay him. But on McLaurin's side, he goes in, it is his year 30 season, I want to say. Yeah. And yes, he's going to want some money, but he's, we've already heard he doesn't want to reset the market. So maybe you hit him right around $30 million. Makes sense for a guy who became your ascendant young quarterback's top target last year. Makes perfect sense. 13 touchdowns a year ago. That's going to be hard to duplicate this year due to the variance. But, man, he made great big plays, over 50 yards. And, again, Daniel's looking his way on a regular basis. I think it makes sense for them to get something done. I think the Commanders probably realize this, although I was a little concerned to hear, McLaurin this week saying he'd heard nothing from them. I suspect he will. Adam Peters seems to be pretty good at running the show here. And, again, once you pay Deebo Samuel $1 million, I think $1 million a year more this year to be a wide receiver, you kind of knew McLaurin was going to get his share. I just wish they'd get it done sooner. But we saw last year, whether it's Chase, CeeDee Lamb, whoever, Ayuk, although it didn't work out well for him, I think that's a good move. And you mentioned, in San Francisco, Jennings wanting his money. I think they have like $50 million in cap money left for this year, and before the extensions kick in next year, they probably can make some kind of incentive-laden adjustment for Jauan Jennings to keep him in check. And I'm interested in him at cost, a guy that had the second highest wide receiver score on the season last year in week 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was also when he was on the field, no matter who was in and or out of the lineup, like he was consistent in every role.
Yep.
So, I mean, he is a guy that I'm definitely interested in. Like you said, that both of these teams have immediate cap space, especially Washington. When you look at having Jaden Daniels on the rookie contract, like they can also factor in like McLaurin's age into this contract, and really, I think not have it really be a speed bump for when they have to pay Jaden Daniels. So you can do a little bit short-term spike for Terry, make him kind of immediately happy. I will say this though, just one thing we do want to keep an eye on is just how much time these guys miss. Almost similar to the Rashee Rice thing, but in a different vein, just because of like the potential slower start for these guys. You brought up Chase and Lamb. They got their deals done. Well, Chase didn't even get a deal until he just showed up late. But Lamb got his done like right before the season. But they sat out the entire training camp. And although, Chase obviously was the wide receiver 1, like he did get off to a very slow start, especially, through 4 weeks, he was the wide receiver 37 in targets. He only had 18% of the team's targets. It was targeted on 16.9% of his targets, or target rate per route run. He had single-digit targets in 6 of his opening 7 games, and then just went bananas in the back half of the year. That could be some of this. The typical Joe Burrow started slow, but then we saw the same thing with CeeDee Lamb. We sat out all of training camp. Through a month, he was wide receiver 14 in targets. He had 21.6% of the team targets the opening month, and then went up to 25% the rest of the season. So training camp does matter still. Like even if these guys have a rapport with these players and they are veteran players and productive players, you could see a kind of a ramp up if these guys do miss some significant time, in terms of training camp. But again, it's when your team's at the strongest point, start of the year, all of those things. But it is something just kind of keep tabs on. We want these guys to get to camp for sure.
It looked like Brandon Ayuk forgot how to play when he season last year. So
week 1, he dropped a touchdown on a play. Yeah.
Yeah, it is something to watch. And like ideally, and like the price is, it's not nothing, right? Wide receiver 16-ish right now. He's one after Garrett Wilson, who, by the way, this is your reminder, NFL teams, that every day you wait to do a new deal, it's going to cost you some money, right? I mean, like, you would think the Bengals could have realized this last year with Chase, but no, everyone has to wait and like try and drag things out. It just costs some money.
Every Cowboys extension ever. Literally every Cowboys wait to the 11th hour and just have to pay top market price. But that was a shrewd move by the Jets. I would like to see more of this for the NFL, especially on these big dollar positions. Extend these guys while you can. And get ahead of the curve. Because like you said, like quarterback, left tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, like the money only goes up. Like it's not coming back down unless we see some kind of collective bargaining agreement that changes things. So especially these wide receivers, get them early, extend them. I do have one quick wild card question for you, because with the other news that we got in the 11th hour before doing this podcast was that Najee Harris was going to start training camp on the NFI list. And, Najee's a guy, he's a veteran player, but he's changing teams. So I'm just curious if that changed anything. We still don't know the severity. Like no one's seen a picture of him. Like, we don't know.
We have no idea.
We don't know if he's going to have to play with goggles or an eye patch or anything else. But like, I'm just curious because this does just give an initial runway for Omarion Hampton to get first team reps, right? It's just an added range of outcomes now for him to potentially, close the door and run away with things early. So I just want to know if you've moved up like Hampton at all since this news has come out.
I've not. I think he's too high. Even like assuming he gets a good start and he gets that opportunity to lock in the lead role. I'm kind of assuming he has that, but I mean, he's going running back 16 right now. Seems a little rich for a guy who may well split. I mean, it's a run-heavy offense, and you love that. Look, I'm supportive of all the Harrises. Every opportunity I get, I stand for them. But in this case, it is. I know Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, kind of threw that out there. It's very strange what we don't know about this incident. And, I thought we were maybe off the hook when the Chargers initially reported and started throwing guys on the injury list. Mike Williams showed up and, Najee Harris is not on the list. Maybe it is very superficial. Well, superficial with an eye is interesting. So what do we got? Harris going as running back 34 with a 9th round price tag right now, just on the consensus ADP. I think, that's not unreasonable, but I don't find myself investing in either of these guys very much so far this year.
Yeah, I'm with you as well on that one. I get the bull case for Hampton. You're looking at maybe like
Sure.
a rookie season like Jonathan Taylor, right? Who had he shared work and then kind of that late boom. But I still think it's hard for where Hampton goes in terms of like projectable workload, like guys like James Conner and Kenneth Walker and Chuba Hubbard and Jim. I still like those guys that just give me a little bit more sense of security and they go a little bit cheaper than him. Maybe don't have the full upside outcome of a Hampton if he runs at the apex, a high octane outcome, but it's been tough for me to just vault him over like that group of guys,
For sure.
which has been tough. All right, so we're going to reach our, sponsored segment of the show here. It's time for our weekly Best Baller segment, sponsored by our friends over at DraftKings, where you can take your shot at $15 million in their best ball contest this summer. Every week, we will ask our outstanding roster of guests who is their favorite fantasy football pick this draft season. So, Bob Harris, who is your best baller this year?
I think he's wide receiver 37 on DK right now. Mike Evans. Just like perennially disrespected, perennially awesome. 1,255 yards last year, 10th straight 1,000-yard season. Had some health issues, missed some games, still finished. He was a monster. Came back from the injury, averaged 96.7 yards per game with 159-yard finale against 159 yards and 118 the last two to get him on pace. I think about the finish. He has looking at him, I think you have wide receiver 1 any given week outcomes. Also, I like that I can maybe get Devontae Adams the round before, add him if I have a quick turnaround to get Mike Evans in. I think that a duo like that can make a difference, especially at best ball.
Yeah, I like that shout as well on Mike Evans. I appreciate that. That's going to wrap up the first segment of 3 with Bob Harris. We're going to come back with the next 2 shows, so look for those on your feed here on the Sharp Angles feed. Remember, you can go to sharpfootballanalysis.com. You can use promo code SHARP5. You can get $5 off the 2025 preview book that myself, Warren Sharp, Ray Summerlin, the whole staff worked on, or you can apply that to the fantasy football draft kit for 2025 that myself and Raymond Summerlin are working on. Thanks to Bob. We're going to be back with the next 2 segments shortly.